Today, we're going behind the scenes with the real detectives of the medical world. Not the ones solving individual crimes, but the ones who solve health mysteries that affect all of us, entire populations. You ever hear about those strange health puzzles? Like, why does one wing of a hospital suddenly have a spike in infections? Or how can a really rare disease pop up way more often in certain families? And why on earth do cancer rates change so dramatically just based on where you live? These sound like medical mysteries, and they are, but they're exactly the kinds of puzzles that epidemiologists are trained to solve. And to get to the bottom of these, they don't just have one single method. It helps to think of epidemiology less like a single magnifying glass and more like a whole toolkit, you know? It's packed with all these specialized lenses, and each one is designed for a very specific kind of public health problem. So in this explainer, we're going to do just that. We're going to open up that toolkit and look through 4 of the most important lenses. We'll see how each one gives us a totally unique and really powerful way of understanding health and disease. All right, first up, we've got the classic detective work. This is all about tracking those diseases that can spread from one person to another. This is probably what you think of when you hear epidemiology. It's like the classic sleuth's lens, right? It's used for tracking down contagious illnesses. The entire goal is the chase. Figure out how a virus or bacteria is moving through a community, who it's hitting, and, most importantly, how to stop it dead in its tracks. So, what does that look like in the real world? Let's go back to that hospital infection puzzle. An investigator first notices that spike in cases. That's the cluster. Then they start mapping out every interaction between patients and staff. They're tracing the contacts. From there, they might pinpoint a single shared source, maybe a piece of equipment that wasn't sterilized correctly. Once they know that, they can bring in targeted sanitation protocols, break the chain of transmission, and protect everyone in that hospital. But not all health problems are passed from person to person. For our next lens, we're zooming out, way out, from tiny little pathogens to the big environment that surrounds every single one of us. This field is all about investigating the hidden dangers in our surroundings. It's not about what we catch from someone else, but what we might be exposed to in the air we breathe, the water we drink, or even the soil in our communities. So picture this, a town where a bunch of people start reporting really strange neurological symptoms. An environmental epidemiologist gets to work. First, they map out exactly where the cases are. Then they start testing everything, the water, the soil, the air. And bingo, they find the culprit. High levels of lead leaching from old corroded pipes. By lining up the health data with the exposure data, they can confirm the source and push for the changes needed to make that town's water safe again. Okay, so we've looked at the world outside of us. Now, let's shift our focus from out there to right inside our own cells. This lens zooms in on our DNA, is all about trying to untangle how our inherited genes, sometimes working with those environmental triggers we just talked about, can make some of us more likely to get certain diseases. Now, check this out. This chart shows exactly how this works. It's looking at a condition called Tay-Sachs disease. If you look at the general population, the gene for it is super rare. But if you look at certain ancestral groups, like people of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, the carrier frequency is way, way higher. Discovering this kind of link is huge. It allows for targeted genetic screening and counseling, giving families access to critical information about their health. And for our final lens, we are tackling one of the most complex and challenging diseases out there, cancer. So cancer isn't just one disease, right? It's hundreds. This field sifts through just massive amounts of data, trying to find hidden patterns. Who gets what kind of cancer, where, and most importantly, why? The whole mission is to identify those risk factors and hopefully figure out how to prevent cancer from even starting. This right here is a perfect example of one of their most powerful methods, comparison. What we're seeing are the lung cancer rates for career miners compared to office workers who are about the same age. I mean, the difference is just stark. By isolating that key variable, in this case, decades of occupational exposure in a mine, epidemiologists can definitively point to a major risk factor. And that kind of proof leads to better safety regulations that protect workers. So, we have these 4 very different lenses: infectious, environmental, genetic, and cancer. But why is it so important to even separate them? Why not just lump it all together? Well, first off, specialization lets people become true experts. You just can't track a virus the same way you trace a chemical in the water supply. And that focus leads to targeted investigations and prevention strategies that actually work. But the real magic? The real magic happens when these experts team up, when they combine what they've learned about our genes, our environment, and our exposures to solve the biggest and most complex health puzzles we face. So, the next time you hear about some health mystery in the news, think about this toolkit. Ask yourself, is this about a pathogen spreading? Is it a toxin in the environment? Or is it maybe a pattern hidden deep in our DNA? Knowing which lens to start with is always the first step to finding the answer. Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful, do us a favor and hit that like button, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed for more explainers just like this one.
And seriously, we love hearing your feedback and your ideas for what topics you want us to tackle next. Thanks so much for watching.